My topic today is, does Islam emancipate women? So, nice, interesting topic. And really to explore this issue, what I really need to do is go back 1400 odd years ago and take us back to a time pre-Islam in the Arab world where you have essentially what was seen as Assyrian law, but largely a very tribal society where people of all sorts of minority backgrounds are discriminated against. So whether you're of a different colour, if you're a different ethnicity, whether you have disabilities, whether you have a different class to the people around you, you are treated pretty badly. So gender equality features fairly low down on the list of priorities for the people of this time. Some historians describe the state of women as mere sort of sexual gratification machines for men. Some would say, some would debate as to whether the female actually has a soul or not. And often women were basically owned by men. And even, the transaction of marriage would be one from a man, the father who owns this woman, to the new husband who will now own the woman in a particular way. And that's if that sort of contract takes place. But freely women are, abused, or people have relationships with them in a way that is, their right. So women have very little place, very little position, to the point, and the Quran tells us about this, that the woman is such an embarrassment that female infanticide, the burying of the female infant, is sort of rampant amongst the community. It's so embarrassing, it's so burdensome for people to have a female child that it may be better for them to actually bury her in the very early stages of life. So what's interesting is then that almost overnight, and it isn't really overnight because obviously this happens over a period of 20 years, you have this wonderful revolutionary concept called Islam that arrives through the vehicle of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which suddenly revolutionizes the state of affairs, not just for women, for all of these minority groups, but women, obviously that's the focus today. Suddenly they're taken from a place of being the lowest of the low to being given unheard of rights and freedoms, the opportunity to vote, the right to be educated, the chance to earn an income and keep it, the right to own property, the right to inheritance, the right to marriage, the right to divorce. Concepts that really weren't anywhere. There are verses in the Quran that suddenly show men and women that you can be equals. So verses that put men and women on par with one another. Say to the believing men, say to the believing women, say to the men and women who are pious, say to the, so suddenly this woman that is nothing has been risen to this status where she is often equal in the Quran, but even sometimes can be in a position greater than a man. The verse in the Quran which talks about reverence your guardian Lord and then reverence the wombs that bore you. The man is not given such a privilege of reverence, and yet the woman is in this particular situation. And then you have these great examples of how women, because of this sort of opportunity of education, they are able to become experts in the fields of science, in the fields of technology, in the fields of art and culture. You suddenly have women over years, after the Prophet, peace be upon him, passes away, that become doctors and judges and managers. So clearly, Islam does something very revolutionary that does appear to emancipate women. I wanted to read out a little extract from a man called, I don't know, you may have heard of him, Sheikh Muhammad Akram Nadwi, a great scholar, who actually, in 2007, thought what he'd do is actually try and find female scholars, that were inspired by this period. Let's find, and he thought he'd probably come across a few hundred women. But when he started to sort of dig, he found something like over 8,000 female scholars that had come out of this richness of opportunity that the Quran had inspired, that God had enabled them to sort of pave a way forward for. And one of the entries in his sort of dictionary that he puts together about these scholars is that, and I'm just going to read it out to you. So the dictionary's diverse entries include a 10th century Baghdad-born jurist who travels through Syria and Egypt, teaching other women, a female scholar, or muhaddithat, in 12th century Egypt, whose male students marvel at her mastery of a camel load of texts, and a 15th century woman who taught hadith at the Prophet's grave in Medina, one of the most important spots in Islam, and one 7th century Medinan woman who reached the academic rank of jurist, issuing key fatwas on Hajj and rituals and commerce, and another female jurist living in medieval Aleppo not only used to issue fatwas, but also advised her far more famous husband on how to issue his. So you have this great history, this great legacy of women that have come out of this period, emancipated, essentially, by this religion that gives them these freedoms. And in contrast, the Western world is quite slow to act. It's only actually, in the 20th century, as late as that, in the early 1918, I think, if we just look at one right, the right to vote that was given to women. And even then, she had to be age 30, and she had to own her own property to be able to have the right to vote. It was only 10 years later that she was actually then, as long as she was over 21, that she was then in a position to vote. So it does seem that this religion did something that was really quite remarkable by way of liberating women, pushing them forward, and asking them to sort of step up and take the public sphere and do something with it. What's interesting is that then seems to be the peak of female Muslims in Islam. And from that point, sadly, we don't seem to have progressed in much the same way. If anything, sadly, sometimes we've almost backtracked. Sometimes things have undone themselves. And from a place of position and privilege, which was what I believe Islam sort of projected women towards, they have again gone down the road of being pushed behind closed doors and decrease the opportunity of having avenues for them to find the best in themselves, to reach their potential. And so I think we have to ask ourselves, why? Why has this happened? If we look at feminism in the Western world, in Europe, in America, what you have is continuous waves of feminism. We often talk about 3 waves of feminism, sometimes people debate about 4 waves of sort of feminism, but each wave brings with it a different element of pushing the agenda forward, making people think and grapple with the issues of the day that accelerate women's ability to be able to deal with society and the times that we're in. But Islam doesn't seem to have done that. And what's ironic is that there are parts of the Quran that scholars have taken in the economic world, in the political world, and brought forward to the context of today, and enable people to do all sorts of wonderful ways of dealing with the world as it is. But women don't seem to have progressed in that way. Women seem to have been left behind, and that seems to have been the sort of limit to how much women can grow. And so I wanted to sort of question, I think there's lots of reasons for why this happens, but I just wanted to sort of highlight a couple of areas that I think have actually made things problematic for us. And I wanted to do that by just looking at a couple of stories that we have at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so the first is the example, so for me one of the things that has happened is that we have forgotten that the Prophet, peace be upon him, however much beloved he was and however much he did for us as humanity, he was a human being. And the Quran reminds us that he was a human being, and not to elevate his status to that of the divine by examples that he gives in the Quran. And the one that comes to mind for me is the incident of Aisha, radiallahu anha. So Aisha, his wife, and many of you will have heard this story, when they are basically travelling, so it's a large group of people, caravan that is travelling from one place to another, And Aisha is actually, as a wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, she happens to have a necklace around her neck which breaks, and she looks for the beads of this necklace. But in that time, the caravan leave her, and no one realises that Aisha is missing. And as she gathers her beads together, she suddenly realises that there's no one left. And one of the companions, thankfully, finds Aisha, and thankfully he takes her and he brings her safely back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the family. But the people of that time, who are waiting for this sort of opportunity, start to whisper. They start to say very negative things. Well, hang on, Aisha was alone with this man. What could have happened? So they plant the seed of suspicion in people's minds. And for, I think it's about 3 or 4 weeks, Aisha's left in limbo. So she has this horrible thing over her head as to whether she's committed some sort of adulterous affair with this person. And she's hoping and waiting for her husband to step in and say something to clear her name. So for 4 long weeks, she waits patiently. And Muhammad, peace be upon him, is stuck. Because he doesn't know what to do. In his heart, he thinks she is a woman of integrity, and he wants desperately to believe that she would not do anything. And yet, his human limitations listen to the whisperings around him that are telling him that actually this is what probably happened. This is what could have happened. Is this true? Where do I stand? What do I do? How do I deal with it? And only after 4 weeks of this sort of confusion and dilemma, the Prophet, peace be upon him, goes to Aisha. And she's now in the family of her parents because of this confusion. So she's not actually living with the Prophet, peace be upon him, for this, these weeks. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, says to her, look, Aisha, I'm not sure if you've done this or not. You're the only one that knows. And so if you have, then ask God to forgive you. And if you haven't, then be patient. And Aisha loses it. She gets really upset, really angry, and says, how dare you? If I haven't been patient for these last few weeks, what have I been? And so the point here is, for me, that, and actually very soon after that, the revelation comes down from God, which clarifies her name, which says that actually, look, that this woman is innocent, and how dare anybody point a finger at someone without evidence? For me, that shows very clearly that the Prophet, peace be upon him, however brilliant he was liable to make mistakes because of his humanity. Not necessarily mistakes, but, overlook things or not understand, because of his humanity. Why is that example given in the Quran for us if it's not for us to take lessons from? So that's one example. And I bring that example up because today it is the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that people often use and often quote as a way of limiting the woman's ability to be able to do certain things, behave in certain ways, interact in society. The second example that I wanted to give you was this idea that I believe that Islam, when it came with these rights and these privileges and these ways forward, that was really just the beginning for us. So that was something that sort of almost triggered a trajectory that was meant to continue to make us evolve and move and progress and be the leaders when it came to women's rights and women's emancipation. And sadly, we didn't do that. And the reason I come to that conclusion is looking at the life of Umar, radiallahu anhu, so the very close companion of Umar. But even if you look at Umar before Islam, he's a very violent, very aggressive sort of personality. We know that he has slaves and he beats them. And when he accepts Islam, his personality changes. He becomes much calmer. He's still very much a person that is forthright and not afraid to speak his mind, but he doesn't do things that Islam tells him he should not do. But what's even more interesting about Umar is his journey before, when he's with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and when he then becomes the ruler of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passes away. And just very briefly, because I know I've run out of time, but at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he seems to be the one that seems to take into account the ignorance of the society of that time. Whereas the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, seems to be the one that wants to constantly give people the benefit of the doubt. And I say this by giving you a couple of examples. So one is when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is talking and laughing with women around him. So there's a group of women and they're all giggling and laughing, and Umar comes in and he storms in and he's really angry that why are these women talking and laughing with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? And they all run away because they're embarrassed by it. And he sort of takes his stand and gets angry with them that, look, you're embarrassed by me, but why weren't you embarrassed by the Prophet himself? And then the Prophet laughs it off and says, look, Umar, if Shaitan was coming on the opposite path to me, and you were walking in the opposite direction, Shaitan would run away from you. So he laughs it off. But his way seems to be one where he wants to push women to the public sphere. So when Umar says to his wives, no, don't go out into the field to relieve yourselves because people will see you, the Prophet, peace be upon him, turns around and says, no, why? Let them go, let them do what they want. And so you have this sort of almost antagonism between the personality of the Prophet and the personality of Umar. And eventually the Quran seems to come down on the side of Umar, where it limits the freedoms of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay? I want to contrast that with after Umar, when he becomes leader, and how suddenly his position changes. And now he feels he's living in a very different society, which is much less ignorant and much more able to accept women in the public sphere, and how he then, from a position where he wants to keep women in the background, puts a woman in charge of the marketplace. She is now in a very central position, conversing with people, dealing with people on financial transactions, sometimes even alone with people about different things. But I just want us to sort of think about that sort of projection and that sort of trajectory, and whether we've missed something when we look at the whole idea of women in Islam by limiting it to what happened hundreds of years ago.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.